All right. And hello, everybody. I believe we are live. Yes, we are. Welcome to the Unslaved Podcast, episode 102. My name is David Whitehead, and I'm extremely honored to be here with you once again. Today, it is actually the 100th anniversary from World War One, as if that's something we want to celebrate, but something we can maybe get into just a little bit. But today, Michael and I are going to be doing a talk with you about hatred of wisdom. And if we look around at what's happening in the world, socially, politically, in the media, the discussion that's happening on forums, etc., it seems to be that this subject is due, and it's going to be definitely enlightening for everybody, including myself. So, Michael, welcome. You gave me the slides for this. You were talking about some of the ideas you had for this show. Maybe give the listeners a little introduction to what we're going to be covering for them today in this episode.
Yeah, do you want to read first that opening quote, and you can
Sure.
take it from there? Just show the slide as well. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have Nathaniel Brandon here, the great Nathaniel Brandon. He says that a child is vulnerable because he is not yet able to recognize clearly and unequivocally that his elders are irrational.
Yeah, you want wisdom, there you got it. Between him and Ayn Rand, you don't need many. You don't need much else. It's a lifetime to digest that. And there's another classic. Yeah, because look, what is a crowd? We're going to be talking a lot about crowd consciousness. That was one of the themes of the article, Hatred of Wisdom. The term itself, as we'll see, comes from a French philosopher. But a crowd is two people. Yeah, and what he's addressing there is the being that is going to be a member of the crowd. It's one cell in the crowd. So if you're really in a panic situation, as we are, and you want to understand the anatomy of something, you're going to have to dissect it. Every problem has to be broken into separate parts, whether it's mathematical conundrum or some element of psychology. You look at the relationship of a person with their mother, with their father, with their society. You break it down, right? So he's breaking it down. What is the creature that we are, that we're dealing with? What is the soil from which the evolved person? We've done sage and psychopath. How does one affect the other? How does a good man grow out of the soil? He grows out of an ignorant state. It's the alchemical process of first starting with Negredo, and then he becomes something finer. But what is his starting ground? Well, it's the irrational, childlike, infantile state of pleasure principle. Nothing wrong with it for infants, but there's certainly something wrong with it, as Rand and everybody started pointing out, if you find these traits in the adult. But that soil from which one grows is the trouble. And there's nothing the child can do about it. That's why we're picking up the slack later on, because we don't have the tools. Your parents could teach you anything, and you're looking to them as the providers, the nourishers. You're the big frightening world. They've made sense of it, so I have to trust in their vision, right? And it's only later on, when you're in your 20s and 30s, that now, with the benefit of hindsight, and it is a benefit, it's not a bad thing, because now you are bringing tools of rationality, intelligence, logic. You've learned, you've gained experience from the world. So now you can revisit the childhood situation, go, oh, well, look at that. What the hell? And that's, hopefully an evolved person. But in our discussion, you see, you're dealing with not non-evolved people who, remaining irrational, perhaps even embodying the hypocrisy of the parent. And we said that that's the super ego in psychological parlance, where the part of us that is completely identified with the parent. Now, that would be bad enough, because, as we're saying, the parent is irrational. But what happens if it's worse than that? Which is what the Freudians and Neo-Freudians pointed out. You've not just identified with the parent, you've identified with their tyrannous power. So the superego, the superego is identified with a imago that is abusing power and is hypocritical. Well, that's you. That's your moral center. So out you go, and Antifa is waiting for you, or whatever, the Paris mob.
Yeah, they change it up every once in a while, eh? The kind of whatever the new trend will be as to where they're going to pull you into their net, right?
Even science, remember, science is collectivized. It's a crowd. We can't extrapolate on that now, but there's a hidden backdoor in science to the collective, the promise of utopia and all of that. But you're quite right. It could be, like I said, the reign of terror in France. The rise of anarchist movements in the late 1700s all over Europe. That's how you got an American Revolution. That's how you got a French Revolution, and the versions in Italy, young Ireland. Wasn't that all a mob? What wasn't it? Wasn't it a mob that arose in the streets of Leningrad or wherever it was? St. Petersburg or wherever, to storm the Winter Palace, to bring in Bolshevism. What was the civil rights? They've done a beautiful smoke screen, so you don't know any of this. It's a mob. Well, you had that Seattle, back in the 90s, you had that Seattle. They're all out there marching on some pretext or other, That was a mob. In Ireland, you had the sort of called peace people, clueless, well-meaning, I suppose, but clueless, didn't have a clue what was going on behind the scenes of British politics and Irish politics. Just well-meaning mob out there, carrying their CND. Oh, well, there's another one, CND, Brixton, the riots in Brixton back in the 80s, Toxteth, and their demonstrations. Because remember, we're not talking about a well-organized group of people who come to hear a speech or a normal political procession and demonstration. We're not talking about that. We are talking about Occupy movement, the today's thugocracy and mayhem, looting, which inevitably follows a lot of this. Streets of Paris, the Paris mobs of the 60s and 70s, frightful, nearly brought down the government. We have flash mobs, although they've parked that. They don't want to, in America now you get these flash mobs, breaking into stores, breaking into your house, jumping your fence.
We even have this in sports. Like, think about the fact that after some of these games, soccer matches, hockey games, people invest so much into this, and it's the same feeling that you get when you hear people from the left or right side of politics, where they're getting together and they're fighting people that are cheering for the other team. So if their team won and the other guys lost, they go and burn the city down, and they turning cars over and Molotov cocktails, and women and children getting hit on the way out with baseball bats, and just crazy stuff over a freaking game. If we're going to do that over a sport, the power elite know we're going to do that over all these other things like religion, race, gender, all this kind of stuff, politics, and that's a more powerful and potent form of it. But it's all the same. It's that collectivistic mindset, that mob mentality you're talking about.
And it's sometimes smoke screened, but as you say, these football hooligans in Hamburg, coming out of British cities, pure thugs, going out and ransacking Frankfurt and Brussels and God knows, just mayhem. People have died. Innocent people have been thoroughly beaten up for no reason because you're not wearing the right shirt. Vice versa. You have and that's from Brazil to Europe. I mean, the soccer hooliganism is rampant. They trash the airports, they trash the ferries. So this crowd consciousness is all around us. Just because you're living in suburbia and don't see it every day. It's prominent, as you say. The football crowd. The lads at the pub. What's that? What is that? That's a crowd mentality. Wherever you want. I'm converting to Islam. I seen Sinead O'Connor leading the way. Yeah.
Oh my God.
She's into diversity. She's into the incredible choice that Islam gives you. You can become Muhammad or you can become Ahmed. I mean, you're spoiled for choice, right? The women. Oh my goodness, look at the incredible choice of dress and the freedom of thought. I mean, yeah, sure. That's crowd mentality, isn't it? One book to tell you what to do, one leash for a million necks.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was just gonna say, what if you think about that? Like, converting to Islam is one thing. What about all these Western people converting to, through all these yoga cults and guru cults? This was going on during Krishnamurti's day, where he was talking about this. He was like, "Why are you guys going to all these gurus? Like, you have your own culture, your own civilization. There's philosophy. This is what freed the world." And yet we're going back, and I get people constantly messaging me, well-meaning people. I think people that are sometimes just on the path of trying to figure stuff out, but they're like, well, I think it's better that we go back because we've devolved so much in our modern society and everything's toxic and materialistic and all this kind of stuff. We should go back in time. We should go back to, when we were just living like tribes in the Amazon, or when we were living like this. And so isn't this it's kind of a natural progression for an uneducated mind. When I don't want to insult those people, but it's just like I used to think like that coming up until I started reading books and thinking, and meeting people and organizing events and watching mob mentality happen at those events, and watching how all these people who are so-called spiritually enlightened and virtuous and well-meaning suddenly turned into the most demonic people you could imagine, embezzling money, screwing people over, lying, cheating, manipulating, and you go, whoa, what happened there? And you start to realize that while there might be a positive benefit to having people come together, there's that old statement in the Bible even that says, where two or more are gathered, the Spirit is with them. I don't think it's just talking about some collectivistic group of people just sitting there repeating mantras, although that's what the priests wanted. I think when you look at it from the perspective of individuals, here we are on Unslaved with our membership, and we have people that are interested in these subjects. There's kind of a group there of people, but the thing is that there's a different refrain. There's a different message here, and the message is we're not here to be some cult leadership or tell you what to do, what to think. This is people coming together to learn, like you said. So would you comment then on like a positive form, what the difference would be, a positive form of group coming together for a positive, not a collectivistic thing, but versus what we see with this mob mentality? Oh, you're muted, Michael.
Well, to me, that's always been the internet. On a best day, we know the internet. We don't have to, we don't have to explain that the internet has got some bad points. But what is it really on its better day? It's the communion of outsiders. There's not a single member of Unslaved that is not an outsider. They're all outsiders. They wouldn't be here otherwise.
Right.
So there's the proof in the pudding that there is a positive manifestation of it. And as I said, look, even a demonstration or a gathering to hear a great speech, that's not a mob. There's still individuality there. We're thinking, we're using our brain. There's a fine line. But to answer your question, it doesn't work unless you've seen the opposition of what the crowd is. You really have that in stark, relief, which is the outsider. Right. If you're just going to diagnose crowd mentality from this sort of Archimedean point, but you don't point out what it's against, what it will crucify, what it despises on sight. We're talking about here hatred of wisdom. You couldn't possibly really get to the bottom of diagnosing the crowd. So you have to always have its contradistinction right in front of you, which is the outsider. And then the real motive of a crowd. Somebody on social media, when we posted the banners, said, "Oh, wouldn't it be better just to call it fear of wisdom?" And that's true to a point. Fear is included. But no, I chose hatred of wisdom because fear gives a feeling of recoil. What you fear, you recoil from, and you block out, and your response to it, the thing you fear, is a very, very different dynamic. It's not what we're really looking at. Hatred is the word because it's active. It's not passive. It's not recoiling away. It's not as threatened as you might imagine. It's offensive. It's going after what it hates. It's going to tear it to pieces. It's tearing your individuality to pieces. Fear be damned. This is an overt, But again, that's because that person on social media, I'm not saying they're completely wrong, but obviously they didn't have the opposite in their mind. Because if they did, and they thought in terms of an outsider, then you're thinking in terms of casualty statistics, and you don't say it's fear. You understand that the word hatred is correctly chosen and is verifiable. This is not this is a willful, unfrightened opposition. They're in your face. They're breaking your windows. They're coming to your door. We know where you sleep, right? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Tucker Carlson.
They're coming. Yeah, that doesn't look very frightening to me. Jesus, we've got more CCTV cameras. This thugocracy is operating despite the cell phones, despite the good people, the people sitting on the buses recording these boogaloo. That doesn't seem to stop them, does it? What's frightening? What's fear got to do with this? These people haven't abated one jot because, there might be a camera, or might be somebody, secretly filming me, or it might be recorded. They're getting up in restaurants in full audience of decent people, and going absolutely apeshit. This is an offensive thing. So,
well, they were told to do that by Maxine Waters. So Maxine Waters told them to go out and start causing trouble to people that are on the other side. All the celebrities are there. All the late night so-called comedians that are on television are telling people every day, hate America, hate yourself, hate the history, hate everything about yourself. The only way is progressivism. The only way forward is all this bullshit equality.